I stood in the sunlit foyer of the luxurious house, my mind racing with doubts. Nathan, my husband of 2 years, was adamant we could afford this $1.5 million property, assured by my father, Harold's promise to help with the down payment. "This place is incredible, Clara. Imagine us hosting dinners here, or the kids playing in that huge garden," Nathan said, his eyes gleaming not with joy but greed. A knot formed in my stomach. "Nathan, even with Dad's help, this is too much. We should be looking at something we can afford on our own." Nathan's face darkened momentarily before he masked it with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "But sweetheart, your dad said he would help, right? It's practically a gift." As we wandered through the house, Nathan chatted excitedly about rooms that seemed too grand for our needs. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a future we couldn't afford, based not only on financial debt, but also on the moral debt we'd owe to my father. The real estate agent had been distant, letting Nathan lead our tour, but then suddenly, as Nathan stepped out to admire the garden once more, the agent grabbed my arm and pulled me aside into a smaller room, closing the door behind us with a firm click. I was startled. "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry for the abruptness, but there's something you need to know." His face was serious, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "Your husband, you need to get away from him as soon as possible." "Excuse me. What are you talking about?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it trembled despite my efforts. "I know it sounds crazy, but I have a friend who runs a bar on the Las Vegas Strip. Your husband, he's involved in illegal drug trafficking. They caught him just yesterday. I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't absolutely sure." My world seemed to tilt on its axis. "No, that can't be, Nathan. My Nathan." He nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid so. Look, doing this could get me in a lot of trouble, but I felt you should know." I felt like collapsing right there. The luxurious surroundings felt suffocating now, mocking me and my ignorance. Why? Why would he do something like that? Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away, refusing to give in to the despair encroaching upon the edges of my heart. "I can't pretend to know his reasons, but for your safety, you should leave him. I can help you if you need it." I shook my head, pulling away from his grasp. "No, I need to think." Stumbling out of the room, I barely registered the house around me. Nathan's figure appeared at the end of the hallway, his smile bright as he caught sight of me. "There you are. Did you see the walk-in closet? It's as big as our bedroom now." His cheerfulness, once endearing, now felt like a veneer over a rotting core. My heart ached as the man I loved, the man I thought I knew, seemed like a stranger before me. "Yes, it's lovely," I managed to say, my voice void of emotion. On our ride home, Nathan chatted nonstop about the house, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. With each word he spoke, I felt more detached, more resolved. The revelation had not only exposed Nathan's deceit, but had also unveiled a path I knew I had to take. I would leave Nathan, but not quietly, not without ensuring he faced the consequences of his actions. The challenge now was gathering the evidence and strength I needed to divorce such a man. Unbeknownst to Nathan, the facade of our marital bliss was about to crumble, and I would be the architect of his undoing. Months before the discovery, I remember Nathan casually proposing over dinner, not with a ring or a bended knee, but with a financial plan that involved my father's wealth. "You know, Clara, if we got married, your dad could help us out with the down payment for a house. It's a win-win for everyone," Nathan said, his fork paused midair. I remember staring at him, stunned. Is that your way of proposing to me?" The disappointment in my voice was unmistakable. Nathan seemed to realize his blunder and quickly tried to backpedal. No, of course not, babe. I mean, I do want to marry you, absolutely. But you know, the financials are important too, right?" The conversation left a sour taste in my mouth, yet the idea of marriage, of committing to a life with Nathan, overshadowed my concerns. I was in love, and perhaps I reasoned Nathan was just being pragmatic. We began house hunting soon after, but Nathan's criteria were clear, only listings above $1 million. "Clara, with your dad's help, we can afford these places. Think about the future, our kids," Nathan reasoned every time I objected. "But isn't it presumptuous to expect so much from my dad?" I protested, feeling uncomfortable with Nathan's entitlement to my father's hard-earned wealth. "Presumptuous? Clara, your dad loves you. He wants the best for us. Plus, when he's gone, all of this, he gestured vaguely around us, will be yours anyway. We're just getting a head start. I bit my lip, troubled by Nathan's callousness, but again, I rationalized it away. He was thinking about our future, wasn't he? Or was I just blinded by love? As the wedding approached, my doubts grew, but they were whispers against the louder voices telling me I was making the right choice. I brushed them aside, focusing instead on the beautiful ceremony and the promise of a shared life ahead. That life began to lose its sheen quickly after the vows. Nathan's nights out became more frequent, his dismissals of my concerns more curt. I'm just blowing off some steam before we settle down for good, he'd say. I should have seen it all coming. The late nights, the casual cruelties, the entitlement to my family's money, it was all building up to a revelation that would shatter the facade of our marriage. The warning signs were there, painted in bold strokes I chose to ignore. The night after the house viewing, lying next to Nathan, I felt the distance between us stretch into an unbridgeable chasm. His breaths were even and calm, but mine were ragged, uneven with the weight of my realization. I had married a stranger, a man who wooed me not with love but with calculative designs on my family's wealth. A man who, even now, laid plans in the dark. The urge to wake him, to confront him with accusations and demand answers, was strong. But the logical part of my brain held back, knowing I needed a plan, evidence, and an exit strategy. For all his faults, Nathan was not a fool. He would deny, redirect, and if pushed into a corner, he might grow dangerous. The real estate agent's warning rang true, and I knew I had to tread carefully. As I lay in the dark, plotting my next moves, a sense of clarity settled over me. Nathan's deception had unwittingly gifted me a purpose: to expose him and ensure he couldn't harm anyone else. The path before me was fraught with danger and heartache, but I was determined. Nathan would be exposed for who he truly was, and I would be the one to bring him down. It was a cold comfort, but it steeled my resolve as I planned my next steps in the early hours of the morning. The days following the house viewing were filled with tension. I trod carefully, pretending to be the dutiful wife, while secretly gathering evidence of Nathan's illicit activities. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I decided to gently probe, seeking cracks in Nathan's facade. Nathan, have you thought more about the houses we saw? Maybe we should consider something less extravagant. Nathan, fork midair, paused and eyed me with a hint of suspicion. Why? Your dad is helping us out, right? We should aim high while we have the chance. I pressed on, concealing my growing disgust. But shouldn't we live within our means? It's not just about a house, Nathan. It's about being responsible, about not taking advantage of my father's generosity. For a moment, a flash of anger crossed Nathan's face, quickly replaced by a sickeningly sweet smile. Clara, honey, I'm just thinking about our future, about our kids. Don't you want the best for them? Of course, I do, I retorted, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside, but not at the cost of our integrity. Nathan laughed, a sound that once warmed my heart but now chilled me to the bone. Integrity won't put a roof over our heads or pay for our kids' schooling. Sometimes we have to be practical. The conversation was going nowhere, and I felt a deep sense of alienation. The man sitting across from me, sharing my table, my home, was a stranger. Days turned into weeks, and my discreet inquiries bore fruit. A contact of the real estate agent, willing to share information anonymously, confirmed my worst fears. Nathan was indeed involved in drug trafficking, using his late-night escapades as cover for his dealings. Armed with this information, I wrestled with my next steps. Confronting Nathan outright was risky without having a solid exit plan. But dancing around the truth, living a lie, was suffocating. I decided it was time to take action. While Nathan was out on one of his mysterious errands, I copied his phone logs and text messages. The evidence was damning. Conversations arranging meets, cryptic references to deliveries. It was all there. That night, as I lay next to him, pretending to sleep, I felt a resolve hardening within me. Nathan's breaths, once comforting in their regularity, now sounded like the ticking of a time bomb. The man I married, the man I thought I knew, was a criminal, and I could no longer turn a blind eye. The following day, while Nathan was at work, I made my move. I contacted a lawyer, laying out my situation and the evidence I had gathered. The shock and disappointment in the lawyer's voice were palpable, but so was their determination to help me. I understand you're going through a lot, Clara, but you're making the right decision coming forward, the lawyer assured me. We'll need to be strategic about this. We'll help you file for divorce and ensure your safety is the top priority. Feeling a mix of relief and dread, I agreed to their plan. My next call was to my parents, telling them the truth about Nathan, about the lie my marriage had been, was perhaps more difficult than gathering the evidence itself. My father's voice, usually so calm and steady, cracked as he listened. Clara, we'll support you through this. You're not alone. And just like that, the final piece fell into place. My path was clear. Nathan's deceit would be exposed, and I would be free from his lies. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with legal battles and emotional turmoil, but I was ready. Nathan's time was up, and the justice he so richly deserved was finally within reach. No more lies, no more deceit. I was taking back control of my life, and there was no turning back. With my decision made, the gears of justice slowly began to turn. My conversations with the lawyer became a daily routine, each call a step closer to my liberation from Nathan's deceit. My parents offered unwavering support, their home now my refuge, as I navigated this tumultuous chapter. It wasn't long before Nathan noticed the shift in my demeanor. One evening, as he prepared for yet another business meeting, he cornered me in the kitchen, his usual charm tainted with a hint of desperation. Clara, darling, you've been distant lately. Is everything okay? His tone was laced with faux concern, but his eyes scanned my face, searching for weaknesses. I met his gaze, my resolve steeling me against his manipulative tactics. I've been doing some thinking, Nathan. About us, our marriage, your late nights. Nathan chuckled, a sound void of genuine amusement. My late nights? Clara, you know how demanding my job is, but hey, it's all for our future, right? I couldn't help but marvel at his audacity, his ability to lie so effortlessly. Is that what you call it? Work? I let the accusation hang in the air, a challenge he wasn't expecting. Nathan's facade cracked, his smile faltering. What are you implying, Clara? That I'm doing something untoward? His attempt to regain control was evident, the charm replaced by a thinly veiled threat. I don't need to imply anything, Nathan. I know. The room charged with tension, my words a declaration of war. For a moment, Nathan was silent, his mind racing to calculate his next move. Then, with a sneer, he leaned in, his voice a venomous whisper. And what do you know, my dear wife, that I'm working hard to provide for us? Or has your paranoia gotten the better of you? His attempt to belittle my concerns, to paint me as irrational, ignited a fire within me. No, Nathan, I know about the drugs, the trafficking. I know about your business meetings, and I'm putting an end to it. Nathan's reaction was immediate and chilling. His usual mask of charm and confidence shattered, replaced by raw anger. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to ruin everything over some baseless accusations? The man before me was no longer the Nathan I married, but a stranger driven by greed and deception. The only thing being ruined is your illusion, Nathan. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to the police with what I know. The mention of the police seemed to strike a nerve. Nathan's posture stiffened, his anger giving way to panic. You wouldn't dare, he hissed, the threat clear in his voice. You have no proof. But I did, and I was ready to use it. I have more than enough proof, Nathan, and soon everyone will know exactly who and what you are. Realizing his predicament, Nathan's demeanor shifted once more, this time to desperation. Clara, please, we can sort this out. Don't do something you'll regret. Looking into his eyes, I saw not the man I loved, but a coward, a criminal. It's too late for regrets, Nathan. You made your choice, and now I've made mine. As I walked away, leaving Nathan to stew in his fear and anger, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The battle ahead would be long and arduous, but for the first time in a long while, I saw a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Nathan's empire of lies was about to crumble, and I would be the one to bring it down. In the days that followed my confrontation with Nathan, I moved quickly, my every action meticulous and deliberate. My lawyer filed the divorce papers, and I gave my statement to the police. Striding out of the precinct, a surreal calm enveloped me. I had punctured the bubble of our pretense marriage, exposing the murky waters beneath. Now it was a matter of waiting, watching the ripples extend outward, disturbing Nathan's carefully crafted lies. When the police took Nathan in for questioning, the reality of his situation seemed to crash down on him. I wasn't there, but my lawyer, acting as a tireless advocate, relayed Nathan's flurry of calls and messages. He oscillated between begging for my forgiveness and vehemently proclaiming his innocence. It was a pathetic display, one that hardened my resolve further. "I can't believe he's still trying to manipulate you, even now," my lawyer remarked during one of our strategy meetings. I merely nodded, my focus unwavering. "He's afraid. He knows he's trapped, and like any cornered animal, he's lashing out. But it won't change anything. The truth is out." The lawsuit unveiled more than I had anticipated. Nathan's affairs were a tangled web of deceit, involving not just drug trafficking, but money laundering and bribery. With each revelation, I felt vindicated in my decision, though the weight of his betrayal was immense. Our day in court arrived, a culmination of weeks of preparation. As I walked through those courtroom doors, the gravity of the situation struck me. It was more than just a criminal trial. It was a public reckoning, a forum where Nathan's facade would be utterly dismantled. Nathan, looking markedly diminished in his prison attire, wouldn't meet my gaze. During the proceedings, as evidence of his crimes was laid bare, his posture slumped further, the reality of his imminent incarceration settling in. After what felt like an eternity, the jury returned with their verdict, guilty on all counts. Nathan was sentenced to a significant term, a consequence fitting the magnitude of his crimes. "You've shown incredible strength throughout this ordeal, Clara," my lawyer said as we exited the courtroom, the weight of months lifted off my shoulders. I allowed myself a small, bitter smile. Strength born of necessity. But it's over now. It's time to rebuild. Later, faced with the ruins of my marriage and the public fallout of Nathan's trial, I found solace in my family's unwavering support. My father in particular proved to be my rock, his gentle wisdom guiding me through my darkest moments. "Clara, you've faced adversity with grace and courage," he said one evening as we sat in the quiet living room, reflecting on the tumultuous journey. "You're much stronger than you realize." Tears welled up in my eyes, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. "Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done this without you. Without all of you." As days turned into weeks, Nathan's attempts to reach out became more desperate, more frequent. Letters arrived at my parents' house, filled with apologies, promises of change, attempts to invoke our past love. But that chapter was closed. His words, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. The finality of our divorce was a closing ceremony to a painful chapter of my life. With Nathan behind bars, I could finally look to the future, to possibilities once overshadowed by his deceit. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope, of freedom. Nathan's crimes had not only imprisoned him, but me as well. Now, as he served his sentence, I too was released, embarking on a journey of healing and newfound independence. The aftermath of Nathan's deceit was a tempest I had weathered, emerging not unscathed but undeniably stronger. My resolve had been my armor, my relentless pursuit of justice, my sword. And as I stood on the precipice of my new life, I knew that while the scars of the past would always remain, they no longer defined me. In the following months, the stark reality of my situation began to truly settle. With Nathan incarcerated and our divorce finalized, the time had come to rebuild from the ruins he'd left behind. The journey wasn't easy. There were days when anger and betrayal clawed their way back into my heart, days when the loneliness felt unbearable. Yet, it was during these moments of vulnerability that I discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed. One afternoon, a knock at my door heralded an unexpected visitor, Nathan's mother. My stomach knotted at the sight of her, a reminder of the life I had so eagerly wanted to forget. Yet her eyes held a sorrow and shame that mirrored my own. "Clara, she stumbled over her words. "We are so sorry for everything Nathan did to you. We had no idea." Her voice was a whisper, laden with grief. The anger I'd braced myself to feel didn't come. Instead, looking at her, a mother mourning the son she thought she knew, I found a semblance of pity. "Thank you, but you don't have to apologize for Nathan's actions. He made his choices." She handed me an envelope, her hands trembling. "Please take this. It's the least we can do." Inside was a check, a substantial amount, likely their way of compensating for the horror their son had caused. Returning the envelope, I met her eyes. "Keep your money. It won't undo what Nathan did. The best thing you can do is support him in becoming a better person once he's served his time." Her eyes welled with tears as she nodded, understanding. She left quietly, and I closed the door behind her, feeling an unexpected sense of closure. Weeks turned into months, and I threw myself into my work with renewed fervor. It was both a distraction and a pathway to independence. My evenings, once filled with Nathan's shadow, now hosted friends and family whose support became my bulwark against the remnants of my past. One evening, reflecting on the tumultuous events, I realized the extent to which I had grown. The naivety that once clouded my judgment had been seared away, leaving in its wake a sharper, more discerning eye. Nathan's betrayal, while devastating, had unwittingly gifted me a second chance at forging a future on my own terms. The door to love, I believed, had closed the day Nathan's lies came to light. Yet life, as I was learning, was unpredictable. Marcus, a colleague, evolved into a friend whose company became a balm to my bruised heart. Our relationship, built on mutual respect and shared experiences, gradually blossomed into something deeper. "I don't want to replace your past, Clara. I want to build a future where it's just a distant memory," Marcus shared one evening, his hand in mine, a promise shining in his eyes. And in that moment, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility of love, a love that was kind, genuine, and untainted by deceit. Nathan's shadow still lingered, a constant reminder of the scars I bore. Yet, as Marcus and I ventured into the unknown together, I felt those shadows recede, replaced by the warmth of new beginnings. As for revenge, the sweetest I could exact was to lead a life filled with happiness, purpose, and love. A life where Nathan became nothing more than a footnote, a painful lesson learned. The road to recovery was long and winding, with its fair share of obstacles. Yet with each step forward, I shed the chains of my past, emerging stronger, more resilient, and most importantly, free. Nathan had sought to define me with his deceit, but in the end, I defined myself through my strength, my will to overcome, and my capacity to love again. My journey wasn't without its nightmares. Dreams where Nathan's voice echoed, taunting, filled my sleep on more nights than I cared to admit. It was during those nights that the reality of my newfound strength was tested, a stark reminder of the darkness I had successfully navigated. But as dawn broke, dispelling the shadows of my fears, I was greeted with the light of my reality, a life rebuilt from the ashes, with Marcus by my side, an unwavering beacon of support and love. Time marched on, healing the wounds Nathan had inflicted. His name, once a constant echo of betrayal, faded into the background, a distant memory that no longer possessed the power to hurt. My work flourished, as did my relationship with Marcus, each day a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It was a crisp autumn morning when the past decided to resurface. Nathan, having served a portion of his sentence, had been released on good behavior, a fact I came to know through an unexpected letter that found its way to me. His words, penned with an air of desperation and remorse, sought forgiveness, a plea for understanding and absolution. "Clara, I understand if my words bring pain, but please know I am deeply sorry for the heartache I caused. Prison has given me a lot of time to think, to regret, and to hope for a chance to make amends," the letter read. The trembling of my hands ceased as I read on. His words, designed to evoke sympathy, sparked a different reaction within me, a realization of just how far I had come and how little his apologies meant now. Marcus found me at the kitchen table, the letter discarded beside me. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched on his face as he took in my troubled expression. "It's Nathan," I began, my voice steady. "He's out and he's apologizing." Handing him the letter, I watched as Marcus's eyes skimmed the contents, his jaw setting in a firm line. "He has some nerve," Marcus muttered, his protective instinct flaring. "Are you okay?" I nodded, a sense of peace settling over me. "I am." His words, they don't have power over me anymore. I've moved on, more than I thought possible. Marcus enveloped me in his arms, a bastion of comfort and strength. That's all I needed to hear. In that embrace, I felt the final tether to my past dissolve, the final act of Nathan's drama concluding without aplomb. I had transcended the role of the victim, emerging as the author of my own story, one where happiness was not just a fleeting chapter but the theme. As autumn gave way to winter and winter to spring, the life Marcus and I built together flourished. In our home, laughter replaced the silence, and love filled the spaces once clouded by deceit. Nathan's attempt at reconciliation became nothing more than a footnote, a last desperate grasp at a life he had irrevocably shattered. Karma, it seemed, had indeed realized itself, not through vengeance or retribution, but through the serene acceptance of the past and the embracement of a future unwritten. Nathan's downfall was not my revenge, my happiness was. And as Marcus and I stood together, looking out at the life we had crafted, it was clear the best revenge was, in fact, living well. Our journey hadn't been easy, fraught with pain and heartache, but standing on the other side, I knew with resolute certainty we had triumphed.